Here's the thing. We talk about abortion being aborting an unborn child. And the question is, well, does that unborn child have rights? But what about if the baby is born alive? Can it still be aborted, or does that become infanticide? Well, according to Statistics Canada, hundreds of these full birth, live birth abortions have happened, and now 3 MPs want to do something about it. Here's a letter written by 3 members of Parliament to the RCMP, bringing to their attention the fact that Statistics Canada itself shows hundreds of these live birth abortions have happened, and pointing out that that could be murder under the criminal code. Well, joining us now from Ottawa to talk about this is our friend Andrea Mrozek from the Institute of Marriage and the Family. Hey, Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
You know what? Abortion is a terrible topic, and I think it's become socially acceptable because the conversation is vigorously steered away from what actually happens in an abortion. But this is one of the most troubling things I've read about abortion. These were not babies aborted in the womb. These were babies who, either by accident or other means, were born alive, were outside the mom, and were either put to death or just allowed to expire as babies.
That's right. Whenever a politician says, I support a woman's right to choose, I always wish the media would ask, to choose what? Because in concealing what that choice is, then we're able to have a lot of naive and fluffy discussions around women's rights. I also blog at prowomanprolife.org. I am a pro-life woman. I'm unabashed about that. I'm not ashamed of it. And I think it's because of situations like this where it becomes clear about the violence that is abortion, and the fact that in this case we have 491 babies who were intended to be aborted, but they were in fact born alive. I know this happens, there's been attention drawn to this in the United States. They have an Infants Born Alive Act down south of the border. If you think about that for a minute, infants born alive, that is in fact how infants are supposed to be born. And so we look at this, and it is an atrocious circumstance of, we don't know what happened precisely to these babies, but we do know that they were not stillbirths, and that these 491 babies were born alive and subsequently allowed to die in some manner.
We're looking at the Statistics Canada chart right here. From 2000 to 2009, there were 491 abortions, and here's the terminology, of 20 weeks gestation and greater, that resulted in live births. So they actually weren't aborted in the womb. And here's Canadian Institute for Health information saying 119 of these live birth abortions happened in the year 2010 and 2011 alone. Now, I remember 14 years ago in Calgary when the Foothills Hospital, which had a major abortion facility, when some of the nurses were witnessing this live birth babies that were then left to die or put to death after they were born, they were so traumatized by this, they leaked news of it to a magazine that used to be called the Alberta Report. Alberta Report started to write about this, and the Calgary Health Authority went to court to get a court order prohibiting them from writing about this, claiming it violated privacy. The fact that they are so secretive and ashamed of what is going on in their hospital tells me it's something we have to look at a lot more closely.
And in that Foothills case, as you mentioned, I believe that the Alberta College of Surgeons was forced to address this, and there was at least a draft policy saying that in these later term abortions that happen at 20 weeks or later in the pregnancy, there ought to be an injection to the heart of the baby such that the baby would not be born alive, that there would be no possibility of this. The problem is here, which, as you mentioned, that we're putting nurses and doctors in a very, very horrible situation if you think about it. I know one nurse, Jill Stanek is her name, and she blogs. She has become a full-time whistleblower and blogs about this issue because she was a nurse who witnessed another nurse taking a baby to the soiled linens room or some sort of a garbage disposal area, and instead she said, no, I can't let this happen, and she held that baby for the 45 minutes that it took for the baby to pass away. But this is what we're looking at, and there's a gray, blurry line around this in our country. The recent poll that was so heavily cited in the media, saying 60% of Canadians don't want another abortion debate, also said that 77% of Canadians don't have a sweet clue what the law on abortion is in this country. And so maybe it's time to do a little bit more education on what that is.
Well, the liberal media will do anything to avoid a debate. Let me show you a tweet by the left-wing Huffington Post. This says it all. Look at this tweet here. Group of Tory MPs, all white men, want abortions investigated as murders. Well, yeah, they may be Tory MPs. Most of the MPs in Parliament are. The fact that they're white men is somehow attempting to discredit this. But abortions investigated as murder, well, that hides the fact that these were live births.
Yeah.
They actually, I don't even think you can call it an abortion if it was born. Abort means to stop before it's concluded. Live birth means you did conclude it. It's no longer an abortion when the death happens outside the mom. I find this deeply troubling. I think we have to talk about it no matter what the Huffington Post says, no matter what the court orders and the Foothills hospitals say. We have to talk about what abortion is. And if people truly believe that this is Canadian morality and that sex-selected abortions is Canadian morality, well, they should face it in the eye before saying they're pro-choice. Andrea, this is a terrible piece of news. I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about it today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.